And joining us now here in studio is the President and General Manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brian Burke. Nice to have you in that chair here at TVO.
Thanks for having me on.
I saw you give a lecture several months ago at the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Business that had not much to do with hockey and a lot to do with executive leadership. And I found that speech intriguing and thought we should get you in and talk more about that. So I'm not going to ask you about X's and O's today and all of that stuff. I want to ask you about what goes on off the ice. So let's start here. What business are you in, Brian?
I'm in the entertainment business.
You're not in the sports business?
No.
That would come as a surprise, I think, to many people. Why are you in the entertainment business, not the sports business?
Because our competition is not other sports teams or other hockey teams. It's every place that people can spend money for entertainment outside of their working hours. So the theater, the movies, these are all things that we compete with for people's hard-earned money. So I view myself as in the entertainment business. I happen to sell hockey tickets, but I'm in the entertainment business.
Is entertaining the fans almost as important or more important than winning the game?
No, in a lot of people's minds, no. To me, it's a very important part of what I do. There's three pillars that I base my teams on. One, I try to run it like a business because I think to get people to buy tickets and sponsors to invest in the game, they've got to see their dollars being spent intelligently. So I've always prided myself on running it like a business, making sound decisions with other people's money. Second, we try to entertain the fan. We try to play a style that's consciously entertaining, and it's a trademark of my teams. We try and chase the puck. We don't sit back and trap. We try to hit in all three zones. We fight. We try to score a lot of goals. I want to entertain you. I have to get you to the edge of your seat several times, period, for you to feel that this was a fun evening. And the third is the charity work. We insist on not just that our front office staff do a ton of charity work. We make the players do it as well.
We're going to pull some of all those themes apart in a second here, but you've got two titles, which obviously not everybody in a head office for a hockey team has, and we have a non-sports audience, if you like, so I want to understand those two titles better. You are the general manager of the hockey team, which means you do what in that capacity?
All the hockey operation stuff, which means I'm responsible for all the players that we procure for the organization, whether we trade for them, draft them, or sign them as free agents. I'm responsible for assembling the coaching staff, scouting staff, managing the budget for hockey operations for the year, running the farm team, anything that's hockey related, hockey operations, that's what the general manager does.
You actually sign the contracts with the guys? You negotiate the contracts?
No, I don't negotiate. We have Claude Lizell on our staff does that. Very few general managers negotiate contracts anymore. Most teams have a cap contract guy that does them. We're fortunate that our cap contract guy is a former NHL player and also has a lot of input on the hockey side.
When you say cap, you mean the salary cap?
Salary cap, yeah.
Okay. Does the general manager need the permission of his board of governors or directors to do anything?
It depends on your contract. Generally, yes. If a transaction is above a certain scale, say you want to acquire a player that's making more than $3 million, you're generally, most GMs in pro sports, not just the NHL, there is a threshold limit at which they must seek approval. Some contracts say you need approval to fire the coach and things like that. So yeah, there's generally some limitations on what you do.
You said a second ago that you hire the coach, but is that one of those decisions where you would need backing from the board to do that?
Most GMs would probably have a clause that say to fire the coach, they would have to run it by the board because there's an expense involved there because now you're paying two coaches for whatever time that coach has left. So that would be where the board or the owner would probably want to have something to say about that.
Okay. Has there been a circumstance where you, for example, have gone to the board of directors and said, I want this, and they've said, no, we don't think so?
Not in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah, and I know people think Ontario Teachers Pension Fund gets criticized a lot for our team's performance, but I can tell you in the time I've been here, they've been wonderful owners. They've been supportive. They have not said no once. They have not interfered once. Any failings this team has had fall directly on the shoulders of the people that make the personnel decisions, not ownership.
Okay, you said not in Toronto, but you've managed other teams, which leads me to believe that you have been vetoed in previous situations.
Yes, I have.
For example?
I got turned down on a trade when I was in Anaheim, and the owner's reason was that we were at budget, and this particular trade would have cost $1 million for the rest of the season. And Henry Samueli, our owner there, is a wonderful guy. He said, I'm not going to interfere with the hockey decision. You want to trade those players, that's fine. You got to make the money line up. We're not going over budget by $1 million in this trade. And that was perfectly acceptable to me. When you're outside your budget, then the owner has to make that call.
What year was that?
That was 06.
So it was actually the year before you won the Stanley Cup, so he turned out to be right?
No, we might have won the year before if I had done the deal.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, that's the managing side of things. You're also the president of the Leafs. As the president, you do what?
It's one of the most fraudulent titles in pro sports, in my case, because of the centralized nature of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. We've got like the president typically with a team would oversee the business operations, selling of tickets, ticket pricing, rink boards, radio deals, television deals, all the signage in the arena, concessions, and handle the building side often too. Here, because we own 4 teams, it's Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto Raptors, Toronto FC, and the Marlies. They've centralized the sales and marketing and sponsorship operations and ticketing operations. So really, we have an unbelievably competent staff of people that do that. And I like the business side and I'm good at it. I ran it in Vancouver with the help of a wonderful guy that worked with me named Dave Cobb, but I actually ran the business side and I like that side of the business. I think I'm good at it. And my big fear when I got here was, are these people, are they the right people to do it? And they're way better than I ever dreamed to be in. So it is a fraudulent title. I say that all the time when people ask me, you are the president and general manager. It gives you some clout when they use it in the media. It gives you some clout with fans. Oh, he's not just the general manager. It has value when you're making a sales call, because I do participate on the business side. It helps to have that title. But it is, when anyone pushes me on it, I concede right away that there's a great deal of P.T. Barnum in this.
Now, just as the general manager picks the coach, it's usually the president who hires the manager, right?
Correct.
But you're the president. So what does the current president think about what the present general manager is doing?
Well, I don't think my view would be any different than anyone who's watching the show. We haven't gotten the job done yet. And I've been here for 3.5 years. I think we've put some major building blocks in place, the Kessels and the Lupels and the Phaneufs. But we haven't had team success. We had a really good first 2/3 of the season last year, and then the wheels fell off. We had a coaching change. So I would say at this point, we would call it an incomplete. You would probably say, well, we'll give it a D or a C- or whatever grade you want. We view it as a work in progress. We had to turn around a team that was really in tough shape and had a lot of players under contract that were difficult to move. We've done all that work now, put some building blocks in place. Now we think we can upgrade the goaltending position, that we're a playoff team.
And in terms of the profitability of the operation, the president's got to be pretty happy with how that's going, yes?
The team is profitable, yes. We're fortunate that we have a great venue and very loyal fans and a very loyal sponsorship base.
Now let me circle back to something you talked about earlier, which is the kind of hockey that you design, the kind of hockey you design your teams to play. You say you don't like teams that play boring defensive traps. You like to attack. You like to be, your famous word is truculent, that kind of thing. If, however, you thought you could win by having a more boring team, is that a trade you would make?
No.
Because you're in the entertainment business?
Because I think you can do both. I think you can win. The team that won in 2007 in Anaheim, my team in the Anaheim Ducks, that was an exciting team. It was an entertaining team, and they had success. I think the LA Kings that are in the Stanley Cup Finals right now are an entertaining team. I think New Jersey, which traditionally has been a trap team, they're playing entertaining hockey now. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can do both. Here's what's happened, I think, in our sport, and in football and other sports too. You're a coach. You want to survive, and you're playing a much better team. So you say, well, I don't want to lose 6-1 at home. I'm going to lose 2-1. And the shots on net are going to be 18-14. I can't understand that thinking. And it's partly our fault, the general managers, because we're not patient enough with coaches. But to me, I want to entertain those people when they're there. And if we lose 6-1, we lose 6-1, then I got to get you better players, and we'll get to the point where we can entertain and win. But in the meantime, I want to entertain people.
The template you used to create the Stanley Cup champions in Anaheim in 2007, that template, does that still work today in 2012?
It's a little different. We want top 6, bottom 6, top 4, bottom 2. I was going to explain that.
Okay,
so give me a second. We basically, there's 12 forwards that dress most nights. We want, the old model was top 6, bottom 6. Your top 6 is where all your skill is. Your power play units are there. That's where your salary is concentrated in your salary cap. So that is the Phil Kessels, the Joffrey Lupels, that group, high skill. First power play unit, second power play unit. Your bottom 6 are more blue collar guys, and they do the grunt jobs. They take face-offs, they fight, they kill penalties. They're the guys who are on the ice in the last minute of a game when you have a lead. Same with the D, 4 skill D, 2 blue collar D. I think the model has shifted even in the 5 years since that cup. to more of a top 8, bottom 4, top 9, bottom 3. Now, more skill in that bottom group and more speed in that bottom group.
So if you're for lack of a better expression, if you're a plugger, your opportunities to make a living in this league are much fewer now. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, they are. The skating requirements come way up. With the rule changes that came in out of the lockout, taking out the red line, putting a premium on speed, if you're going to be a bottom 6 guy now or a bottom 4 guy, you got to skate.
Having said that, what does a typical bottom 4 guy make?
Well, the average salary in the league is, I don't know, is this year $1.7 million or something?
That's the average?
Yeah. So they're, the entry-level salaries, guys in the 700 and 800 range, and you've got guys making $7 or $8 million.
Still beats pumping gas.
It beats a lot of jobs.
Yeah. You belong, if I can say, to a very exclusive fraternity. There are about 330 million people who live in North America, Canada and the U.S., and 30 general managers of 30 hockey teams. And I wonder how tight that fraternity of leaders are.
I think what happens is, it's funny because my first GM job was 1992, so that's a long time ago. And so I'm one of the gray guys in the room now. I look around and I went to the game last night with, Chuck Fletcher. He was an intern for me in Vancouver, 25 years ago.
This is Cliff's kid.
Cliff's son, yeah. And he's a good man. Ray Shiro and Darcy Reguera and I are sitting there. We've been at this for a long time, and I'm thinking the age disparity struck me. I'd say the group, you find out who your trading partners are, and who you just, like Darcy Reguera is a good friend of mine, good guy.
Buffalo.
Yeah, and we've never been able to agree on players. It's like I'm speaking French and he's speaking Spanish. We just have different evaluations on players. We've made one deal all the years we've been GMs. So you tend to find guys that try to line things up the same way you do. The best trade is a trade that works for both teams, because then you can make another trade with that GM. I'd say the group is fairly close, but we have offer sheets, and there's no love lost among some guys.
Well, you say the best trades are the one where both sides are happy, but my hunch is people think that you guys set out to try to screw each other. I mean, there must be some of that, isn't there?
Well, you can't. We call it skinning a guy. The problem is if you skin a guy in a deal, and you'll never make another trade with him again. And if you skin guys a lot, then a whole bunch of guys say, you know what, I better not deal with that guy. He's too sharp. So you can be too good at the job to a point where, like there's, Glenn Sather's a genius. And there was a point where guys were really nervous about picking up the phone and calling Glenn Sather because he won so many deals. He made so many good deals in a row. So you can be too sharp for your own good if you make too tough of deals or too many of them. But in general, the best deal you have is a deal that you both make again. Can
you give me an example of how somebody else treated you, what in your view would have been dishonorably in making a trade?
I could give you some examples of the trades that were thrown at me, but be disrespectful to the players involved, because I have to tell you who the dog was that was thrown at me. So okay. I trust you, or trust me when I tell you, we call those insults. Or you say to the guy, look, that's not an offer, that's an insult. I got offered a trade when I was a relatively young general manager in Vancouver, probably in '99. And the general manager said, this trade, before he laid it out for me, he said, this trade will put you in the Hall of Fame. And then he laid out the trade, and it was unbelievably one-sided for his team. And I said, which of us is going in the Hall of Fame after this trade? Because it looks to me like you're gonna. We never made the trade.
Why would it be in his interest to want to see you go to the Hall of Fame? Like immediately that would make me suspicious, wouldn't it?
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
So it was, there are, if you throw a raw deal at a guy, if you throw a guy and you aggravate him with the deal and it's an insult, then you're gonna have a real hard time calling him and getting serious treatment the next time. So it does require, it's a card game that requires some threshold knowledge of what's gonna aggravate or insult a guy on the other side.
Mike Keenan was apparently famous for, what, mispronouncing players' names somehow?
Yeah, that was a ploy that he would use to make you believe he was unfamiliar with the player or disinterested in the player. And, I didn't bite on it. I don't think anyone else did. But when I was the GM in Hartford, he called me about a trade, and he asked about Eric Weinrich, who was a defenseman that played for us. Good player, good kid. And he said, would you be interested in trading this Reinwich kid instead of Eric Weinrich? And I said, Mike, his name's Eric Weinrich, and needless to say, we never made that trade.
That was a tell for you, eh?
Yeah, that was, but I think it might have worked. I don't know. You have to ask Mike. Maybe it worked on somebody else.
I want to ask you now about how you deal with players. What kind of a relationship is a manager allowed to have with the guys on his team?
What I like to have with my players is a relatively close one, but some distance too. This is a guy you might have to trade tomorrow. This is a guy you might have to rip in the paper tomorrow or in front of the team. So I think what you want is a friendship, but not too close a friendship. My interaction time with the players is I tend to go down before practice, grab a cup of coffee and sit next to them in their stall. How's it going? How's the baby? How's your wife? And make sure they know we care about their families and we care about them, but not so close that they're coming over for dinner and that, you know, the day after you have a guy over for dinner, you trade them. So it requires a tightrope a little bit. I think players are very intelligent. They understand the relationship. My job is to win hockey games and make the team as good as I can. And if that involves trading a player, I'm going to do it. So they don't get too close.
Okay, so no dinner invitations at the house, but out for drinks after a game?
No, players, they go their own way after games. I always walk back on the plane, on the bus, and may chat with players on a charter after we're going somewhere, but I always walk back, just keep an eye on the card game, make sure no one's getting skinned. But also, you know, to interact with players, praise them a little bit. You know, a guy might have had a real good fight or blocked a shot that saved the game for us, or a goaltender played well. You want to make sure you praise them in front of their peers. You know, you don't just say, nice job as they walk on the plane. You go back, and the other players can hear and you say, that was a good job tonight.
If you trade a player, will he hear about it from you or someone else?
Me.
Always you?
Always me.
And you feel the need to do that because why?
I think the players in this league are marvelous athletes. I mean, it's the hardest sport to play by far. And you take, you know, and people argue about these things, but to me, there's just no debate. Whatever an athlete in another sport has to do, hand-eye coordination, handling the ball, the puck, everything we do is one layer removed because you have a stick. You're not throwing the puck. You got to handle it with a stick. So a whole different skill set, a whole secondary skill set, and you got to do it. Everyone else does it on their feet. And every person knows how to walk and run. So all they got to do is learn to walk or run faster than somebody else. We got to learn to skate. And these guys, they got to learn to play on a piece of steel, 1/8 of an inch wide. You can win an Olympic gold medal in 2 sports just for skating. And then you put in the full contact aspect, so there's a fear factor. It is the hardest sport to play. So I admire these players. They have to pay an awful price to get to our league. I think they're deserving of that.
Would you trade a player just before Christmas?
Well, we have a different Christmas trade freeze than anyone else. The answer is yes. The NHL has a Christmas trade freeze that goes from the 19th to the 26th, I believe, Boxing Day.
No trades during that period?
You cannot trade players during that period, so players get Christmas with their families. I don't think that's a long enough period, so everywhere I've been a manager, we go back 10 days from that. We start on the 9th instead of the 19th, so especially your European players, they can book flights and get their families in, get their folks in to see them. So we have a 10-day longer freeze than anybody else.
Do you know whether the players really appreciate that a lot?
Yeah.
They do?
Oh, yeah.
They tell you so?
Players on other teams tell me that. Like we get near Christmas time and we'll be playing in Boston and a Bruins player will say something to me. It's great what you guys do with the freeze. So it's something that our players are grateful for and other players notice.
Let's make it a little more complicated. If you knew a guy's wife was pregnant and they just bought a house in this city and his kids are enjoying the school that they're in, would you trade them under that circumstance?
Yes.
You would?
Yeah.
Now, how come that's different from
I've done
Christmas?
it. Well, first off, that's part of what we do. You look at the standard players contract, it says it can be assigned. So that player is making good money and he's living in a great city. That's one of the occupational hazards. No different than your business. You look at the number of people who are on the air, they get canned. That's part of the job. That's part of the risk you run doing that. And so they accept that risk. I've had to trade players with parents who are ill, with relatives who are ill, pregnant wives. Been there, done that. The horror story you just said, I've done that. I'm not proud of that. That's the worst part of the job, but I've done that.
That's not the worst one, actually. You've traded guys whose parents were, like, about to die from cancer or something?
Not about to die, but illnesses in their family, yeah.
How is that?
It's not fun.
I mean, I think everybody thinks of you as being this big, tough Irish guy, you know, and I guess they wonder, you know, does your heart beat a little faster when you got to go tell a guy who's got a
Absolutely.
sick parent? So that does get to you.
Absolutely. It's not, there's parts of this job that just aren't fun. You've got to be, first off, the pressure of the job and everything, but there are situations where you trade a guy, you really like a guy. Like, this is a player, I remember we traded Richie Sutter when I was in Vancouver. The Sutters are all the same. They're wonderful, wonderful hockey players. Great
Six
team,
of them.
great
Six of them in the
teammates.
NHL.
Yep. And we traded Richie Sutter, and we called him in to tell him we were trading him, and Pat Quinn and I were in the room, and he just started bawling. And we had to get him a towel. And he didn't say a word the whole time. We explained where he was going, whatever, and then he got up and said thank you and walked out. And Pat Quinn was white as a ghost. He said, we just traded a kid. That's the kind of kid we're trying to get here. We just traded him. And so there's parts of this job that are, you trade players that you really admire and really want to be part of your team, but that's not your job. Your job is not to fall in love with players. Your job is to win hockey games.
What's the best trade you ever made?
Oh, I think when you answer questions like that, you're really, really poking the other guy on the other end of the deal. I think in terms of impact on a team, the 3 trades that led to the Sedins, I think, probably had the most impact on a team because there's 2 players. There are 3 separate trades, so it wasn't one team that was involved.
Let's tell. I want you to tell this story because I've heard it before and it's a good story. The background of this is that these 2 Sedin twins. This is when you're in Vancouver, and you're drafting. It's draft day, and okay, you want to pick up the story from there because they were, you know, they're obviously 2 separate guys. You can't pick them both at once. So what'd you do?
Well, we had the 3rd pick in the draft that year, and that draft included the Twins. The other top 4, or other 2 guys rated in the top 4 were Patrick Stefan, who would have been a marvelous player but had some concussion issues. That's who Atlanta took first. And Pavel Brendel, who went 4th. And we weren't big on, we liked Patrick Stefan, we weren't big on Brendel, but the World Juniors that year were in Winnipeg and the Twins weren't very good. So I was like, we're not taking the Twins. We're probably going to trade the pick. We didn't like that draft, and we thought we could make a good deal and trade the pick. Then the Twins made the men's senior team for the World Championships in Oslo. And I'm like, you know, I better go over and watch these kids. And they were terrific. Bigger ice surface, they're playing with men. Back then, the Swedish team never took 18-year-olds on the senior men's team. Never. And these 2 kids made it, and they were great. That's when we said we're going and getting the Twins. So we made a deal with Chicago a week before the draft to get the 4th pick. And Bob Murray was the GM in Chicago. It was a very expensive trade for us. Traded Brian McCabe in his prime, a really good player, and a 1st to get the 4th pick. Then we traded up and got the 1st pick from Tampa Bay, and then I didn't want to go up there twice. I wanted the Twins on stage, and we made a deal with Atlanta to drop from 1 to 2. And so when we went up, we took them. That's why they were 22 and 33. Daniel was drafted 2nd, and Hank was drafted on 3rd.
Well, I think I heard you tell the story once. You said, and besides, I couldn't tell the 2 damn guys apart.
I couldn't. I just held out the sweaters. I didn't know. They just said whatever the draft year was. It was 99, I guess. So it was 99 D Sedin, 99 H Sedin. I just held them out. I didn't know which one was which. We were all excited. The first year, you can tell them apart. I can tell them apart now, but I need like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. First year, Danny got a cut in his lip, and we were all so excited because finally we'd be able to tell them apart. And the scar healed. You can't even see it. It doesn't help at all. Yeah.
If trading guys who are under difficult personal circumstances is the worst part of the job, what's the best part of the job?
Winning is the best part of the job. When you have a parade, you win it all. It's like climbing Everest in our profession. You got 30 GMs trying to do it. You got all these players trying to do it, and your group managed to climb to the peak and plant that flag, and there is nothing in your professional life that's going to touch it.
You've tasted that once.
Yep. It's not enough.
Not enough.
No.
You still burn?
Yeah, oh yeah. The morning after we won the cup, I was in bed trying to figure out, in the morning, wake up trying to figure out how do I sign J.S. Youre, our goalie, who was an unrestricted free agent. And so we stuck around, we had our rally. We didn't have a parade because it was really not suitable for that in Anaheim. We had a big rally, it was really cool, outside the arena. And the next morning, I was on a plane to Montreal to try and sign J.S. Youre. So it was, okay, how do we do this again? And we have not had success since then, but that's still the goal.
Had Vancouver won the Stanley Cup last year, they got to Game 7, lost in Game 7, with a team that essentially you put together, would you have taken a lot of pride in that?
Yes. I was actually hoping they would win. First off, they're playing Boston, a team I despise. They're in our division. And I would have taken great pride in, I think to be fair to Mike Gillis and Dave Nonis, Dave Nonis took over after me, and he brought in Luongo, he brought in Edler, I think, he brought in some key pieces. And then Mike, I thought, really added some good spare parts to that group. Like, I thought he shored the group up with some really good acquisitions. So it wouldn't have been my cup, or, it would have been a collaboration, if you will. But I'm very proud of the players I left that are still there. I left the Twins, I left Ryan Kessler, I left Sammy Salo, and I left Kevin Bieksa. So a captain, 2 scoring trophy leaders, an MVP, and a Selke, top defensive player. So that's a pretty good core to leave a guy.
Brian, let's finish up on this. In a normal business, if you do everything right, you win, however that's defined. You know, you make a lot of money, you make a lot of money for your shareholders, your employees are happy, whatever. In your business, you can do everything right. The puck bounces a funny way and you lose and you don't win the Stanley Cup. Isn't that, in a way, a crazy way to make a living?
No, because if you're good at your job over time, your record will support that you're good at this. In other words, this is my fourth team, and all the places I've been before, I've managed to turn the team around and turn it into a winner, if not a championship team, one that could contend. The process has been more difficult here. We haven't had the success we'd like, but that's still the goal here, is to have a parade. It's a different kind of work. It's a lot more pressure. It is really, you can't, because of the mathematics involved, the only way your team can get better is if another team gets worse. So it really is a difficult, you got 29 guys that go to bed thinking of ways to beat you and wake up thinking of ways to beat you. And they're skilled at what they do. The GMs are good at what they do. It's a hard way to make a living, but I wouldn't do anything else. Like I say, my son, Patrick, who works for the Flyers, I get paid to watch hockey.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
Can you imagine what kind of parade they'd have in this town if it ever happened here?
Well, I was at the Bruins parade last year. I just happened to be there for Father's Day and went right by the hotel I was staying. It really aggravated me, by the way. But I emailed my boss, Richard Petty. I think the parade route, I'm looking at the TV because I lived in Boston and practiced law there for years. And I'm looking at the TV where the parade route is, and I emailed my boss and said, it looks like the parade route is about 2 miles long. We'll need 10.
At least.
Yep.
At least. Good luck, and thanks a lot for coming in tonight. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.